My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of Ted Lasso Season 2. And just a heads up, this review will have spoilers, so if you haven't seen it, go and watch it, then come back and watch my review. But I absolutely loved the first season. It was such a pleasant surprise. Jason Sudeikis did a phenomenal job. He absolutely deserved every single award he won. And I just love how it's about this character that brings out the best in everyone. It reveals the humanity in characters that you wouldn't expect it from. It smartly subverted expectations, it was inspirational, it was hilarious, it was a feel-good, pure season of television. And I have to say that this might be the biggest dip in quality I've ever seen from a season 1 of a show to a season 2. I still like Jason Sudeikis as Ted Lasso, but he feels mitigated to a side character. He's hardly ever given the focus, and what we liked about the character in the first season is just gone here. The entire underdog dynamic to his character is gone, but most importantly, the fact that he was going through such a difficult time in his life in season 1, but he still inspired people. He still was able to bring out the best in everyone. And that entire aspect is completely gone here. Instead, in an attempt to give him depth, they ruined what we loved about the character in the first place. And there's another character played by Sarah Niles who does a good job, but she's a therapist, and the therapist only serves one function in this season. And that's to serve as a giant plot device to explore Ted's past. That's the only reason she exists. Rebecca feels like a totally different character this season. I know she's not that mean, nasty boss anymore, but she's just so giddy and happy all the time, and it doesn't feel like the same character. Just everything with her and Celia is just like, oh my god, ah! They're squealing and gossiping, and I haven't seen Sex in the City, but I'm pretty sure the stuff between those two in this season was what watching an episode of Sex in the City felt like. It was absolutely awful. I would never wish it on my worst enemy. And then they tease this big plot throughout the season of, oh, who's Rebecca texting? Is it Ted? No, it's Sam, and I just did not care about that relationship at all. I don't care about how they tried to build up the mystery. I never cared who she texted, and then they tried to force this relationship between Rebecca and Sam, and it's just so cringy. It felt entirely forced. And then Roy Kent unfortunately feels like another character who just turned into a caricature here. And what I mean by that is that he's no longer Roy Kent. Instead, he's just this grumpy guy who swears all the time. Yes, he was a grumpy guy who swears all the time in the first season, but he also had that arc of the fact that he was coming to terms with the fact that he was past his prime, that he was going to have to retire soon. And he just doesn't feel like a fully fleshed out character here. His relationship with Cecilia, is that her name? Every time I hear her name, I just think of that girl in Monsters Inc. with the snake hair. Anyways, his relationship with her, I didn't care for. They tease a love triangle between those two and Jamie, and I could not care less. I don't care about that stuff. Everything involving Roy and her in this season was just so cringy, and it just felt like a totally different show. The entire season ends with him surprising her with vacation tickets, and she's like, well, I'm about to start my new job next week. And he goes like, yeah, I know, but we could go on this trip. Totally forced. I don't buy that he would buy tickets for them days before she starts her new job. And they kind of end on a note, well, are they going to break up? I don't care. Jamie in this season doesn't even feel like a real character. He's given the spotlight so much in season 1, but he's hardly present at all in season 2, that they act like they still gave him a meaningful arc, and it just did not work for me at all. His dad was also way too over the top this season, but I will say that there was one moment after Jamie's dad's yelling at Jamie where Roy gives him a hug, and it is actually a sweet moment. They try to have another kind of moment between them in the last episode, and I just didn't buy it. Like, Roy headbutts him, and Jamie's like, oh, why'd you do this? So I could do this. And then Roy gives him a hug, and I'm just like, that still doesn't explain why you headbutted him. But whatever, maybe I'm putting too much thought into it. I still like Coach Beard in this season, but I do think they gave him a bit too much dialogue. He doesn't do a bad job with it. I just like him more as that presence, as that man who says few words. Brandon Hunt does a good job playing him, and there's one episode that focuses only on him, and even though that episode is way too long, I still thought it was an entertaining episode. But I think my favorite character arc this season was Nate's. Nate Mohammed does a good job playing him, and I like how realistic it was. When people like him who get bullied and have no confidence in themselves suddenly gain confidence, the truth is they turn into pricks. So his character arc felt really realistic. That said, it ended on a very cringy, over-the-top note that's setting him up to be this evil villain, and it's just too over-the-top. It doesn't feel grounded in real life anymore. And there's also this new character played by Sam Richardson who was really over-the-top too in the last episode. Yeah, like, really over-the-top. Like, it felt like he thought he walked onto the stage of the Three Stooges, and that's the way he acted. Very questionable decisions. I say this all the time, but this season is another case of the Minions effect, in where the supporting characters become the leads when they shouldn't. The supporting characters are meant to be the supporting characters. Why we love Ted Lasso is in the name itself. It's Ted Lasso. He is what made this show as good as it was. And now, there's just so many characters given the same amount of screen time, if not more, to the point where you can't keep track of who's even the main character even more. What is the focus? What's even the narrative of Season 2 of Ted Lasso? There's not a clear, thorough storyline. You could argue that it's the fall of Nate, but then everything else just feels so random. There's not a clear narrative in this season. And it's just lacking in an antagonistic force. In the first season, we were watching all these bad people become good people. And this season, everyone begins and everyone's good, everyone's getting along, and there's just not a clear antagonistic force. There's no one to root for the main characters against. And because of that, there's an entire dynamic of the show that's just missing. There's just no stakes here whatsoever. And the entire soccer element of the show feels like it's been completely sidelined. Like, it had a bigger role in the first season. Like, Ted helped the team grow together and get better. And you'd think that they would actually be a better team in this second season. But I think they do an even worse job. And just the soccer stuff felt so sidelined that you don't really care for it. And when it shows up, you're just like, what? They lost again? Really? Like, it's like if you watch Walkie and you're like, okay, Walkie lost. That's okay. It's still a great movie. And then if you watch Walkie 2 and Walkie lost again and you're just like, okay, well, why are we focusing on this character? And then in Walkie 3, he loses again. And you're just like, okay, is he ever going to win anything? Why do we care about this? Why is this entire boxing element present if it's just going to focus on the character? And that's what this season's like. Soccer doesn't feel important anymore in the story. And there's just some very cringy stuff in this season. Like, episode 3 begins with Sam getting a text from his dad, and his dad's just like, oh, I hate you, son, because you play for a team that's sponsored by this evil oil company that pollutes the waters in Nigeria. And just the way that entire plot works out, it feels like a freaking fairy tale. Not an ounce of it is grounded in reality. Just, oh, Sam refuses to do this, then they want them to fire him, and then everybody stands behind Sam, and then they get picked up by another company immediately. Don't buy it for a second, and it's incredibly preachy, and stuff like that just takes you out of it. And maybe it's just me, but the show's building up to this big revelation that Ted's secret of him having a panic attack during a game is going to get out there, and everyone's going to be talking about it. And it gets out there, everybody's talking about it, everybody hates him for it. It just doesn't feel grounded in reality. I don't think anyone would react that way if they found out that a coach had a panic attack. I just didn't buy it. Like, I'm not a sports person at all, so maybe the Calgary Flames coach had a panic attack one day and everybody was talking about it, but I wouldn't know. I'm not in that news cycle, but I just thought it was built up to so much, and it just didn't feel like this huge revelation that the show acted like it was. I also thought the music was far too sentimental this season, and there's one episode where they're at a funeral and they start singing Never Gonna Give You Up, and it was just a very cringy moment. And I didn't laugh at all in this season. At all. I actually kept track of how many times I laughed, because at a certain point I realized I'm not laughing at all during this season. And I never did. It is not a funny season of television at all. And the episodes are also way too long. They were about a half hour long in the first season, but now they range from 40 to 50 minutes long. Way too long. Almost every episode felt 15 to 20 minutes too long. Keep it short, keep it simple. I prefer the brisk pace of it all. Every episode just felt really dragged out. But anyways, I'm very let down by this season of television. I thought all the characters were written poorly. It doesn't have that same heart and the same humor that was present in the first season. It's not smart. It's a messy season with no clear narrative that focuses on way too many characters. It's an absolute mess. I'm so incredibly let down by it. Nothing that I loved about the first season of this show is present in this second season. So I'm going to go ahead and give Ted Lasso Season 2 a 2.5 out of 10. Okay, have you seen Ted Lasso Season 2? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon, and Gavin out.